When we started using that framework, everything began to shift. These sensitive conversations became less threatening, more productive, and we started to build trust instead of tearing it down. And we found that when we paid attention, not just to what we were saying, but also to how each of us naturally communicated, it helped us to build a stronger parenting partnership.
Oh, yeah.
But hard conversations and conflict can surface around all kinds of issues: marital struggles, unmet expectations, daily priorities, tough decisions, really anything that feels personal when disagreements hit. Welcome to the Blended Family Breakthrough Podcast. We're your hosts, Mike and Kim.
We believe in a world where blended families can experience a future full of hope, connection, and peace.
That's why we offer tools, strategies, and guidance that move you from a place of confusion and conflict to experiencing a life of confidence and connection.
We're so glad you're joining us for authentic and sometimes comical conversations as we cover everything from romance to parenting, and yes, even dealing with that difficult ex.
So if you're ready to experience breakthrough in your blended family, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Hey there, thanks for joining us today. I am super excited about our topic because what we're going to talk about has changed my life. It's changed our marriage. It's changed my effectiveness as a parent and a step-parent, and even as a leader in the workplace and in our community. Seriously, like this stuff has been a huge game changer for me. Now, before we hop in, would you leave us a rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify? And sometime before we wrap up today, if any of this resonates for you, would you share it out to others that you know? Maybe on your social channels or even just a text to a friend. Because everyone in blended family life needs support. So help us reach those in need.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so today we're going to share some very specific communication tools that will make a real difference in your relationship and how you solve problems, make decisions, and lead your family.
Hopefully change your life too.
That's right. Now, you may have heard us talk about some of these strategies before on the show, but we're pulling several tools into one comprehensive episode today, and we're going to throw a lot at you. So we want to encourage you to head over to the show notes and click the link to the free download that's going to actually help you find ways very practically to implement all of this into your unique dynamic. So you can even hit pause right now and download that and walk through it as you go through our time together today,
Right.
or just listen through to the end and then download it after and roll up your sleeves and get to work. Okay. So I know I'm like super excited, right?
You are.
I know. Are you ready to dive in?
I
honey?
am.
Okay, let's go.
Now, before we hop into those specific tools, we believe it's helpful to start with something foundational. Because if you understand this, it can explain a whole lot about why you and your partner might feel misaligned or misunderstood or stuck in disagreement, even when you both have really good intentions.
That's right. We want to start with a simple communication styles model. And honestly, this can be a game changer for you and your blended family because so many couples aren't just dealing with communication problems, they're dealing with communication differences.
Exactly. Sometimes it's not that your spouse is trying to be hurtful, dismissive, controlling, emotional, cold, or difficult. Sometimes the two of you are simply wired to communicate differently. And when you don't understand that, it's really easy to personalize each other's styles and get stuck.
Yep. So let's make this really simple. This model was developed by Tony Alessandro and his research team, and it's based on two basic but big ideas. First, people tend to move at different paces. So some people are naturally faster. They think fast, they talk fast, they decide fast, and they want to move things along.
Like you.
Yeah, sure. Now, other people are a bit more slower paced.
Like me.
That's right. They want time to process, to think, to reflect, and move a little bit more carefully. Okay, so that's the first one, paces. Now, the second big idea is that people tend to have different focuses. Some people are more focused on people and relationships. Others are more focused on tasks, outcomes, and results.
And none of us is right or wrong. Faster isn't better, slower isn't worse, people-focused is not better, task-oriented isn't worse. We're just different. These are different tendencies we each have.
Right. But if you don't understand those differences, they can create a whole lot of friction, particularly for those of us in blended family life.
Yeah, they have for us.
Yeah, let's be honest. Blended families already deal with enough complexity, right? You've got emotional triggers and different family histories and parenting differences, maybe pressure from the kids, stress from the other home, and maybe even disappointment when things aren't going the way you hoped.
Right.
So when communication styles get layered on top of that, it can create even more misunderstandings.
Yeah. So when we combine our individual tendencies around pace and focus, the different combinations create 4 common communication styles. The first style is the relator. A relator is more people-focused and slower paced. Right. The second is the socializer. The socializer is also people-focused, but faster paced. The third is the thinker. A thinker is more task-focused and slower paced. And the fourth is the director. The director is more task-focused and faster paced.
That's right. Now, we can all tend to flex a little depending on the situation, but most of us also have kind of a home base. It's a style that feels most natural to us, especially when we're tired or stressed or under pressure, right? And that's really important in blended families because pressure tends to expose your defaults.
Yep. So let's quickly walk through each of these styles. First, the relator is usually warm, steady, thoughtful, and relationship aware. They tend to care a lot about harmony, connection, and how things are affecting people emotionally.
That's right. Now, the socializer is usually energetic, expressive, enthusiastic, and kind of idea-oriented. They often bring a lot of life into a conversation and can be very engaging.
Then we've got the thinker, who is usually careful, measured, logical, and detail-oriented. They like clarity, structure, and enough information to feel confident before moving forward.
That's right. And a director is usually direct. They're efficient, decisive, and results-oriented. They tend to want the bottom line and prefer to move toward a decision. Now, here's where this gets really helpful. Each style tends to want something a little different when it comes to communication. Relators tend to want you to be pleasant, supportive, and genuine. Socializers tend to want you to be engaging, open, and interested in ideas. Thinkers tend to want you to be clear, logical, and prepared. And directors tend to want you to be brief, focused, and decisive.
And when those needs aren't being met, people can feel frustrated really quickly. So, for example, if you're married to a thinker and you come in hot with big emotions into a conversation, you're all over the place and you don't really know what you're asking for, your spouse may feel overwhelmed, confused, or pressured. And if you're married to a relator and you come in really blunt and solution-focused, they may feel hurt or dismissed. If your partner is a director and you take a long time circling the issue, they may get pretty impatient with you. And if you're married to a socializer and you shut down their ideas too quickly, they may feel deflated or unheard.
That's right. This is where couples can get into trouble. Instead of saying, maybe we have different communication styles, they start thinking or even saying things like, you never care how I feel, or you always overcomplicate everything.
Or maybe, why are you so intense? Or why can't you just get to the point?
Or why do you need so much detail? Or why are you shutting me down all the time? And now what started as a style difference turns into some assumptions that we make about character issues.
That is such an important point. A style difference is not a character flaw. A faster-paced spouse may not be uncaring. A slower-paced spouse may not be passive. A task-focused partner may not be cold. And a people-focused partner may not be weak. They may simply be approaching communication from a different place.
That's right. And once you see that, it can kind of soften some of the tension a little. It can help you to move from judgment to curiosity. And instead of saying, "What's wrong with you?" you start asking, "What might you need from me when it comes to our conversations?"
And that question alone can change so much. Because in blended families, couples often talk about hard things. Parenting disagreements, loyalty binds, ex-spouse issues, discipline, money, scheduling, holidays, relational tension, all of it, right? And when those conversations get difficult, we usually fall back into our natural communication style. So if you're a director, you might push harder and get more blunt. If you're a thinker, you may slow down even more and want more information. If you're a relator, you might become increasingly sensitive to the tone and emotional impact. And if you're a socializer, you may process out loud, jump around, or bring a lot of emotion and energy to the conversation.
And then each spouse can start reacting to the other person's style instead of dealing with the actual issue. That's part of why this matters so much. Communication style can either reduce tension or increase it if you're not careful. So, for example, faster styles can get impatient with slower styles. Slower styles can feel rushed or steamrolled by that faster-paced person. People-focused styles can experience task-focused styles as too harsh. And task-focused styles can experience people-focused styles as you're just too soft or inefficient. And opposite styles, if you think of these as quadrants, like that fast-paced, people-focused person can get really frustrated by the slow-paced, task-focused person, right? Extreme opposites. And sometimes it just feels like we're living on different planets.
Yeah. So as you listen to today's episode, maybe just ask yourself 2 questions. First, what style sounds most like me? And second, what style sounds most like my spouse or partner? Not to label each other, not to box each other in, but to understand each other better.
That's right. And the goal here is not perfection. The goal is awareness. Because when you become more aware of your own communication style and more aware of your spouse's style, you can then become more intentional about how you choose to communicate. And that intentionality can really help your message land better.
In other words, you can still be you, but you can make some small adjustments that help your spouse actually hear what you're trying to convey.
That's right. And that's where we're going to head next. Okay. We want to unpack some really practical tools that can help you to communicate in a way that builds understanding, protects connection, and helps the two of you stay better aligned as a couple.
That's right. And sometimes we assume that, we're already really good communicators because we've had meaningful conversations in the past. We've opened up, shared vulnerably, felt deep connection, and that may all be true. But even strong communicators need effective tools. Because communication can break down pretty quickly when those sensitive topics surface. You may have already noticed that. The reality is, hard conversations have a way of exposing our blind spots. When emotions rise, misunderstandings happen, defensiveness kicks in, and even couples who normally communicate well can find themselves feeling unheard, reactive, or disconnected. That's why healthy communication is not just about having chemistry or emotional closeness. It's mostly about having practical tools that help you stay connected when the conversation gets hard.
That's right. Recently, one wife in our Blending Together community asked us this: when it comes to blending, what's the biggest challenge couples face? And without any hesitation, both you and I, honey, gave the same answer: building a parenting partnership.
Yeah, it really is one of the hardest parts of blended family life. And one reason it's so hard to build a thriving parenting partnership is because eventually you have to learn how to talk about each other's kids. Those conversations can feel really sensitive. They stir up emotions. They can feel personal. And a lot of couples either avoid them completely or handle those conversations in ways that create tension and even mistrust. And part of the challenge is that we all communicate differently, and those differences can make those hard conversations even harder.
That's right. And when couples avoid those conversations, it doesn't help the partnership. It actually weakens it. Over time, unresolved issues can pile up and couples can start living like two separate biological families under one roof. That's why we want to give you some simple frameworks that can help you approach sensitive conversations about each other's kids in a way that feels safe and sets the stage for collaboration and healthy partnership in parenting. And so we want to walk you through a couple of tools. Now, keep in mind that those communication styles matter. Now, if you've already printed out the download, you can go ahead and pause right now and just walk through the first part of the download that has you examine those communication styles, and then you can come back and join us. You know, the way your spouse hears things could be different than the way that you naturally say them. So that's why we want to understand these communication styles.
It's all about awareness.
That's right.
Yeah.
So let's hop into some tools.
Right. The first part of this first tool is move away from pressure and ask for permission.
Whew.
When we're talking about sensitive things, timing matters. If your partner is already feeling stressed and they're in the middle of a difficult parenting moment with their child, that's usually not the time to jump in with criticism or advice. A parent under pressure won't respond well to more pressure, and communication won't be productive.
I learned all that the hard way.
You did. This is especially true if your spouse is slower paced and needs more time to process, or if they're more relational and already they're feeling tender about what's happening in that hard moment.
That's right. Over the years, what worked much better for us was waiting until things calmed down and then asking something like, "Hey, honey, I'd like to talk about what happened earlier. When would be a good time to do that?" That simple shift actually creates space, it lowers defensiveness, and it helps the conversation feel more like a partnership than a confrontation. It also honors the fact that some people, like you, honey, need a little bit more time to process and kind of emotionally prepare for a tough conversation.
That's right. I do need more time. Now, most people don't do well when they're under pressure or when they're feeling blindsided. I'm one of those people too. But let's move on to part 2 of this framework, which is to move from critical comments to objective observations. Now, this is huge. If you start a conversation with something like, "Your child is so disrespectful," or "You need to do something about that," well, your partner is probably going to feel judged and get defensive. I know I did not respond well, honey, when you came across as critical about Annika's behavior or about my parenting.
Did I ever do that?
Oh, gosh. And depending on your spouse's communication style, criticism may land even harder. A people-focused spouse may feel really hurt, while a task-focused spouse may push back if your words sound exaggerated or unclear.
Exactly. But instead, if you begin with a simple observation, like, "I noticed how Annika ignored you when you asked for help," it's much easier for your partner to hear that and then actually respond to that. Objective observations just stick to the facts, to what exactly happened without piling on labels, judgment, or demands. That helps you get through the hazardous half minute, those first 30 seconds that often determine whether a conversation is going to go well or go sideways. It also helps your words to land better with different styles, whether your spouse values warmth, clarity, detail, or directness. Pretty much all 4 communication styles can handle these objective observations.
Yeah. Now let's move on to part 3, which is to share positive possibilities. Instead of getting stuck on the frustrating behavior in front of you, focus on what you genuinely hope for that child's future. Talk about values, character traits, and life skills. Keep your body language soft and your tone neutral. And this matters because when you communicate hope and genuine concern, you help a relational spouse feel your care. And you help a more task-focused spouse understand the purpose behind this conversation.
Right. So instead of just focusing on what's wrong, I might say, my hope is that Annika grows into a young woman who's respectful, responsible, and willing to contribute to her future household. See, that kind of statement helped you to see my heart for Annika. Would you say that's true?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Positive possibilities communicate that you want good things for your stepchild, not that you disapprove of them and you're just demanding a swift change or compliance or that kind of thing.
That's right. When you took that approach, honey, when you shared what you noticed at a time when I was calm and able to talk, and then you shared your hopes for Annika, I was much more open to hearing your perspective without getting upset or defensive or shutting down.
Yeah.
And then part 4 is to pursue partnership. This is where listening becomes absolutely critical. Real partnership isn't about making your spouse see things exactly your way. It's about learning how to think together, even when your perspectives and communication styles are different.
That's absolutely right. And that means asking an open-ended question like, I'm wondering what your thoughts are about that and how we might be able to partner to make some change. And then really listening, okay? Not case building, not perspective pushing, just listening with curiosity so your partner feels heard and known. And sometimes that also means validating their struggle with something as simple as, yeah, honey, I can see why this is so hard for you. The more you actually understand your spouse's style, the easier it is to listen and then respond in a way that they can actually receive.
So here's the framework in a simple form. Ask permission, make an objective observation, share a positive possibility, and pursue partnership.
That's right.
Or as we like to say, I noticed, I hope, and I'm wondering. And as you use this framework, remember that a little awareness of communication style can go a long way.
That's right. When we started using that framework, everything began to shift. These sensitive conversations became less threatening, more productive, and we started to build trust instead of tearing it down. And we found that when we paid attention, not just to what we were saying, but also to how each of us naturally communicated, it helped us to build a stronger parenting partnership.
Oh, yeah.
But hard conversations and conflict can surface around all kinds of issues, marital struggles, unmet expectations, daily priorities, tough decisions, really anything that feels personal when disagreements hit.
We meet with couples all the time who believe their communication problems are rooted in their partner's flaws. They don't listen. Yeah. They avoid everything. They get angry, and I don't feel safe. But what we've learned is that before you can build healthy communication as a couple, you have to examine yourself first. Healthy communication is a skill, and each of us brings both strengths and weaknesses into the process. It's your responsibility to own your weaknesses and learn the skills you need so that you can contribute from a place that's healthy and productive.
That's right. In other words, instead of blaming your partner or trying to fix them, choose to focus on yourself and be willing to learn new ways of communicating and connecting with your spouse. This was a game changer for us because small changes in how you approach a conversation often lead to big breakthroughs in your ability to communicate well. So if you have something that you need to communicate with your spouse, especially if it has to do with the kids, I encourage you to head over to that downloadable worksheet and you actually walk through the I noticed, my hope, and I'm wondering kind of little planner that we put in there. Go
Very
check that
helpful.
out. That's right. Now, we want to share another simple tool that's really helped us approach sensitive conversations in a healthier way. And you may have heard us share this a little bit before. We call it the FAQ conversation. And it's an adaptation taken from the book Crucial Conversations.
That's right. FAQ stands for fact, assumption, and question. It's a practical way to start a hard conversation without piling on blame, criticism, or emotional intensity. Now, it's very similar to the strategy we just shared. In fact, it will work best if you still ask permission to share, because with most any communication tool, timing matters.
Right.
So at a minimum, do your best to choose a time when you're both calm enough to talk. If one of you is flooded, frustrated, exhausted, hungry, tired, or already feeling defensive, it's probably not the right moment to initiate a conversation.
Yep.
A slower paced spouse may need more time to process. A more relational spouse may need time to recover from something hard that just happened.
That's right. So let's start at the beginning, which is the facts. That's what F stands for. Facts are simple, objective observations. They're what actually happened. No labels, no exaggeration, no judgment. So instead of saying, you never think about what I might want, or I can't believe you didn't follow through, you might say something like, I noticed you made plans without asking for my input. Or, we received an overdue notice because the electric bill didn't get paid on time. You see, facts help lower defensiveness because you're starting with reality, not accusation.
Right.
Now, you need to watch your tone, of course, but really stay focused on just the simple facts.
And that's important because different communication styles react differently. A people-focused spouse may feel hurt quickly if your tone sounds critical. A task-focused spouse may push back if your words feel vague or overstated. Starting with the facts help both people to stay grounded.
That's right. So facts is the beginning. Then comes the A, which stands for assumption. This is where you share the story that you're telling yourself about the facts that you observed. Because the truth is, when something happens, we all end up attaching meaning and motive to what we see. We all form assumptions. We jump to our own conclusions, right? So you might say something like, that makes me think you don't care about my schedule. Or, the story in my head is that you didn't follow through on our agreement. The key is to own that it's an assumption or a story and be careful that you don't present it as if it's the absolute truth.
And that makes such a difference. When you say the story in my head is, or that makes me think, it helps your spouse stay open because you're not accusing them. You're letting them see what's going on inside you. You're separating the facts from your own interpretation.
Exactly. And that matters for communication styles too. A thinker might really appreciate that kind of clarity. A relator could appreciate a bit of a softer tone there. A director might appreciate that you're being direct, but you're not attacking. And a socializer might really appreciate that you're being open and honest about what's going on inside of you.
Yeah. So we've got the F, which is the facts, the A, which is the assumption. Then comes the Q, which is the question.
Right.
And this part is simple but powerful. After sharing the facts and your assumption, you ask an open-ended question that invites your spouse into the conversation. Something like, can you help me understand what's going on? Or, I'm wondering what your perspective is on that. Or, can you tell me what was happening for you in that moment?
That's right. And that question is super important because it shifts the conversation from accusation to curiosity. Instead of building a case, you're making space for understanding. And that's what helps couples to move toward partnership.
And that's really our goal. It's not winning. It's not proving your point, not forcing your spouse to see it your way. The goal is to create a conversation where both of you can be heard and where understanding can grow.
That's right. So like we said, this is very similar to the previous tool, but it's nuanced. It's a little bit different. Here it is in its simplest form. Facts. What did I observe? Assumption. What's the story that I'm telling myself about that observation? And then the question, how can I invite my spouse to share their perspective?
So the next time you need to bring up a sensitive issue, don't just react. Pause, get calm, start with the facts, share the story in your head, and then ask your partner that question, invite them in. This is simple, but it can really help you start a hard conversation in a way that builds connection and trust.
Yeah. So we've explored communication styles and given you two very specific tools that you can start using today to strengthen communication with your spouse, especially around tough topics like each other's kids, right?
Yep. The first is the I noticed, my hope is, and I'm wondering framework. It starts with asking permission and making sure the timing is right, then making an objective observation, sharing a positive possibility, and pursuing partnership. Then we shared the FAQ conversation starter, which can be used with any sensitive topic.
That's right.
These two tools have helped us move away from avoidance, reduce conflict, and create space where we both feel heard and understood. But that doesn't mean we expect our partner to automatically adopt our perspective or that we'll magically agree and solve the issue right away. These tools help set the stage for effective communication and problem solving. But there's one major obstacle many couples still run into, and that's emotional dysregulation.
That's right. Sometimes, even when we've done our best to start a conversation from a calm and healthy place, things can still go sideways if one or both of us gets a bit hijacked by painful emotions. When we feel unloved or alone, attacked, deprioritized, misunderstood, overwhelmed, fearful, when we feel like a stranded stranger or a trapped teammate, right? These things make it really hard, sometimes maybe even impossible in the moment, to have a productive conversation and work through hard issues.
Why is that? Because these painful conversations can feel threatening, and our body and brain react by moving into fight or flight mode. We might get defensive and blame others, or turn inward with shame and blame ourselves. We might move towards taking control or do whatever we can to escape and avoid. And when that happens, it becomes physiologically impossible to solve problems, make sound decisions, or work together as a united team. Communication breaks down quickly, and then issues remain unsolved.
That's right. And this is when we might say or do hurtful things in the heat of a painful moment, things that aren't going to be helpful and that later we often regret. This is so common for couples navigating the complexities of blending, and it goes beyond parenting disagreements. It affects co-parenting challenges and financial decisions, logistics, schedules, the way time is spent, or the way resources get allocated. That's why we're so passionate about helping couples face not only the challenges themselves, but also the painful emotions that tend to hijack healthy communication.
Absolutely. Our Relate Strong coaching program guides couples through a process they can use to stay emotionally regulated, even in difficult conversations, so that they don't slide into fight or flight. Instead, they're able to remain calm, stay engaged, collaborate, and make some real progress in solving problems and working through tough issues.
Yeah, and just like learning to communicate effectively, learning to understand and manage your emotions is also a skill. And we believe it's an essential tool everyone needs in their communication toolbox.
Yeah, we've coached over 100 couples through this process, and we use the tool in our own marriage too. We've seen the powerful difference it makes when couples learn how to manage painful emotions well, how to talk about hard things and work together through their issues. And if you'd like to learn more about that, you can click the link in the show notes to schedule your free coaching call with us. You will certainly benefit from developing the skill of emotional regulation. We have.
That's right.
And we'd love to help you get unstuck and take positive steps forward. You might also want to check out episodes 202 and 203 to understand more about breaking free from painful cycles so that you can enjoy deeper levels of intimacy and how to make better decisions and solve problems as a united team. And you'll find links to those in the show notes.
That's right. Now, we've thrown an awful lot at you today, but we want to wrap up things by briefly touching down on one more concept that often leads to communication breakdowns. And that comes from Dr. John Gottman and his research team. Now, if you're not familiar with Dr. Gottman, he's a psychologist, a researcher, and a clinician who has spent more than 4 decades studying marital stability, and he's really able to predict divorce. It's very interesting. Through that work, he's identified what he calls the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse when it comes to our relationships. And these are 4 toxic communication patterns that show up in conflict. His research suggests that when these patterns start to become common in a relationship, they can be strong indicators of serious marital distress.
Yeah. So let's touch on these. The first horseman is criticism. That's when you attack your partner's character instead of addressing a specific issue. It's important to understand the difference between being critical and expressing a complaint. Listen to the difference. Here's a critical statement. You and your kids are always rude at the dinner table, talking about stuff that doesn't include the rest of us. You're so self-focused. Now, here's a complaint. Tonight at dinner, I noticed that you and your kids talked a lot about stuff from the past. That makes me think you're excluding me and my kids from the conversation, and I'm wondering what your perspective is and how we might work together to create more family engagement and inclusivity.
Gottman's antidote to criticism is to use a gentle startup around your complaint. Now, a complaint focuses on a specific behavior, but criticism attacks a person's character. The goal is to complain without blame by using a soft or gentle startup. I love the example that you just gave, honey, because you use that FAQ framework to express a complaint without criticizing, which does create a gentle startup, and that'll help to kind of set the stage for healthy communication and collaboration.
Absolutely. John Gottman states, if you find that you and your partner are critical of each other, don't assume your relationship is doomed to fail. The problem with criticism is that when it becomes pervasive, it paves the way for other far deadlier horsemen to follow. Ongoing criticism often leads to an escalating pattern where it reappears with greater frequency and intensity, which eventually leads to the second horseman, contempt.
That's right. Contempt is especially destructive. Contempt sounds like sarcasm, mockery, eye-rolling, or talking down to your spouse like you're morally superior. Now, the antidote is to build a culture of appreciation and respect, choosing gratitude and understanding over disgust or disdain. Now, we all need to look in the mirror and really be honest with ourselves around this. I know that I've been contemptuous toward you in the past, honey, and I had to do a lot of soul searching to shift my internal processing. Some of that was on my own, and some of that was with my counselor and my mentors. But I had to really get my external behavior to fall in line with the man, the husband, and the father I actually wanted to be. So I'm sorry for those times that I've done that, sweetheart, but I know that I've had to do a lot of work to get out of that contempt mode.
You have, and I appreciate the work that you put in.
Yeah.
Now, the third horseman that Gottman identifies is defensiveness. That usually shows up when we feel accused, and then we try and protect ourselves by making excuses, blaming back, or acting like the innocent victim. The antidote is to accept responsibility for your part, even if it's only a small part. This was one that I struggled with for years. Whenever, honey, you brought up a concern about Annika or about my parenting, I'd get defensive and try to deflect or minimize what you were saying. I might respond with something like, oh, what's the big deal? Or I'd even make you the problem. Do you have to be so nitpicky? Why can't you just relax? But underneath that defensiveness was actually emotional pain. Even when you used a gentle startup, I often felt inadequate as a parent. Or that you disapproved of my daughter and were attacking her. I felt threatened, and in my own emotional dysregulation, I'd move into fight or flight. Now, it wasn't until I learned how to manage those tough emotions and stay regulated and clear-minded that I was actually able to engage in this healthy communication with you and collaborate.
Yeah,
honey.
and I had to learn to do the same, right? Like I just said, I used to get really angry when things didn't go the way I expected them, or when you and Annika didn't do things the way that I thought they should be done. I'd feel abandoned sometimes or unheard and maybe even used at times. But my angry reactions, they just pushed you deeper into defensiveness or caused you to withdraw.
Yeah. And then we'd get stuck. Our issues would go unresolved, only to resurface again and again. But once we learned to manage our emotions and take ownership of our part, we started making real progress. I finally began to admit when I'd failed to follow through on one of our agreements and acknowledge when I slipped back into my pattern of permissive parenting. Hearing your concerns, they still stung a bit in the moment, but your observations were often accurate, and your hopes for Annika were all good things that I also wanted for her. Moving into partnership wasn't always easy, but the outcome was so worth it. We enjoyed greater levels of peace in our home as I gradually became a better, more effective parent. On top of all of that, Annika received the kind of healthy, authoritative guidance she needed from me to really grow and thrive.
That's right. And I needed to own my part because we each contribute to unhealthy patterns, right? When I lost my patience, acted out in frustration, or slipped into contempt, I had to take responsibility for the way my reactions added tension and often made things harder than they needed to be. When both of us were willing to honestly own our part and apologize, we were able to move forward and talk about what each of us needed to do differently and how we could proactively navigate our challenging dynamics together.
Right. The truth is, we're all going to mess up sometimes. No one is perfect. And it's unrealistic to think you'll both handle every situation well. Blended family dynamics can get the best of you and sometimes bring out the worst in all of us.
That's right.
So be willing to own your part instead of getting defensive. And be quick to extend forgiveness to each other. That's an essential skill for blended couples.
That's right. Okay, let's tackle the fourth horseman, which is stonewalling. That's when someone gets overwhelmed and just shuts down, checks out, or just completely avoids the conversation altogether. Now, the antidote to this is to take a short break to calm down and emotionally regulate yourself, then come back and re-engage. That's key, right?
Yeah.
When you're in a calmer frame of mind and when you're no longer in fight or flight mode. Like we said earlier, avoiding difficult issues, it doesn't help.
No.
In the long run, it leads to ongoing resentment and lots of unresolved problems.
So be aware of these four horsemen: criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. And then do your best to break these patterns. The bottom line is that unhealthy communication patterns and emotional dysregulation will pull couples apart. But when you learn to replace the four horsemen with a gentle startup, appreciation, taking responsibility, and healthy management of emotions so that you can re-engage and work through issues together, then you'll create a much stronger path towards connection and partnership.
That's right. So we have really packed your communication toolbox today. Okay. We've given you some concepts, but also a couple of really practical tools. The first is that I noticed, my hope is, and I'm wondering framework for talking about sensitive issues, particularly conversations about each other's kids. And it starts by asking permission and making sure that the timing is right, then making that objective observation, sharing a positive possibility, and then pursuing partnership.
And then you've also got the FAQ conversation starter, which can be used with any sensitive topic. State the facts of what you observed, share your assumption or the story you're telling yourself, and then ask your partner to share their perspective as you listen with curiosity to understand what's really going on for them.
That's right. And as you use these tools, don't forget, you've got to consider your partner's communication style. You've got to practice emotional regulation so that you're not operating from that place of fight or flight. And you really want to steer clear of those four horsemen that can lead to unhealthy patterns. Now, we want to encourage you to take these tools seriously. Head over to the show notes, download the free worksheet that comes with this episode, and you're going to be able to, in a really practical way, walk through each of these tools that we've described today, particularly if you're dealing with a sensitive issue that might arise.
Yeah.
And we want you to commit to building healthy patterns of communication and collaboration in your relationship.
Absolutely. And this is worthy work. Honey, I honestly don't think that if we had stayed stuck in our unhealthy patterns and our emotional dysregulation, that we would have made it to 25 years of marriage and blending.
Oh, no way. We definitely wouldn't be sitting here talking to everybody right now, right? Learning the things that we've shared today was a turning point in our relationship, and it can be for you too. Remember, these are skills that anyone can learn. Believe me, if I can learn them, anybody can learn them. And like I said at the beginning of this episode, these things change my life. And that's part of the point. It's not about changing or fixing your partner. It's about focusing on what you need to do to build partnership by becoming your healthiest, best self.
Yeah, and you can do this.
Absolutely. Now, next week, we're going to be sharing part 2. And we're adding another valuable tool to your communication toolbox, right, honey?
Yes, we are. And we'll be sharing an effective co-parenting communication framework that you can use when you and your ex see things differently. And this is such a critical tool because even when alignment feels hard or even impossible, your kids still need healthy cooperation between homes.
That's absolutely right. The level of peace, security, and stability that your kids experience as they move between two homes is directly connected to the cooperation between their parents. And the way that you communicate can either strengthen or strain your co-parenting relationship.
That's right. So don't miss next week's episode. You don't want to miss the essential communication tool for co-parenting. And we'll also talk about how to set and enforce healthy boundaries with an ex.
That's right. In the meantime, though, go download your free worksheet for this episode. Fill it out. Maybe change one thing this week about how you're approaching your spouse or partner.
Yeah, go for it.
And for now, we're going to make this episode a wrap.
Until next time.